Yeah, so registration launch link. So if we're talking about broadly building an API integration, who is this for? We say learning platforms. That's really a broad term. This could be, like, I think I touched on this earlier, but this is really anybody who, they want to add a SCORM player to their existing platform or portal or blog site. It could be really lightweight, and it can go all the way up to somebody who's building a full-scale LMS that they plan to license and sell. So it's as complex as you want it to be, but there's really a broad audience that might be interested in API integration. So we've talked about with public invitations and private invitations, kind of the difference of when that registration actually gets created. For dispatch, it's kind of up to the client's LMS when are people launching it, and a registration gets created at that moment. But when you're working with the API, it's really up to you to decide when you create this registration. And obviously you need to register them before you can start launching it. So if you're building an integration, you may have some concept of enrollment, or a learner may have access to your whole library of content. But you may want to hold off on creating the registration in SCORM Cloud. So a learner might sign in and they might have access, or they might be enrolled internally in your system in 50 different courses. But you don't necessarily want to go create all those registrations in SCORM Cloud. And then if the learner ends up only taking 5 out of the 20 courses they have, you're paying for those registrations and they may never get used. So we generally recommend creating that registration right at the time that they go to launch it for the first time. And then if they already have a registration and they come back and want to relaunch it, you can skip that step and you just build a link for that registration that already exists. Creating registrations with the API is pretty easy. It's a very simple post request to the registrations endpoint. You can see this example curl command we have that kind of demonstrates this. In the data, you'll see that there's a course ID, there's a registration ID. These are yours to decide. So when you upload a course, you pick what the course ID is going to be. If you already have IDs internally to your system, you can probably use those. Same thing with registrations. They're yours to decide how you want to format those IDs. Maybe you already have an enrollment ID internally that makes sense to you, and you can certainly reuse that for your registration IDs. And then there's the learner object, and the only thing that's required is a learner ID for an API integration. I think we had a question about this earlier, but you can provide, and we will see it in a second, you can provide more information if you want, if it's going to help you on the reporting side, like including their email and first name, last name. But, it's always better to err on the side of, keep PII as off our servers. If it's going to be a concern, if you're going to have to come back later and maybe delete PII, and maybe best to just not send us their name in the first place if you don't need it, but certainly helpful in reports. Yeah, and then next part, once you've created a registration and a learner is ready to launch, you're going to create a launch link. And this is another pretty simple curl request. This is also to the registrations endpoint, but you'll see that the path also includes the registration ID. And the only thing that's really required is the redirect on exit URL. And we'll talk a little when we get to custom, all the things you can do to customize launch links. But essentially, this is where the player is going to redirect the learner whenever they exit the course.